The boy waits for permission. The man rises without it. Most men live under a spell. They don't know when it was cast, only that it hums beneath everything, beneath the job, the marriage, the stillness in their chest. It is not loud. It does not scream. It whispers, "Wait." And so they do, not knowing what they are waiting for. It begins in boyhood, right beneath the chest, a small ache, almost nothing, a question that never gets asked out loud. Am I allowed? It starts as something innocent. May I speak? May I try? May I rest? May I climb that tree? May I speak my truth? May I choose what calls me? Or must I wait for someone to nod? The boy does not know that he is already waiting, waiting for the teacher to look his way, waiting for his father's hand to lift or lower, waiting for the soft voice of the mother to say, "Yes, you can." And slowly, very slowly, he begins to associate motion with permission. To act becomes conditional. He does not name it, but it shapes him. He becomes careful with his voice. He becomes precise in his movements. He learns the unspoken rule: do not go unless called. Many men never outgrow this. They carry it into their 30s, like a watch that's never been set. They ask their friends, "Do you think it's a good time?" They ask their partners, "Would you be okay if I tried?" They ask the world in so many quiet ways, "May I now be what I am?" But the world does not answer, and so they wait. They wait in careers they do not love. They wait in cities they have outgrown. They wait in bodies that feel foreign, and marriages that feel like walking in someone else's shoes. Still waiting for a sign, for approval, for the perfect moment, for the whisper that says, "Now." But that whisper does not come, because manhood does not wait. It is not given. It is taken, but not like a thief. Like a tree takes the sun, like a river takes the path down the mountain. The boy asks, the man moves, and this is where the curve bends. It is not a loud shift. It does not happen with ceremony. No medals, no banners. It happens on a quiet Tuesday, when a man says to himself, "I do not need a yes to be what I already am." And he rises, not in defiance, not in anger, but in truth, because truth does not wait, and neither should he. A boy who waits too long forgets what movement feels like. He builds his life in whispers. He begins to decorate the cage. The waiting becomes a rhythm, not a pause, not a breath, a way of being. He learns how to sit still when the fire burns, how to smile while starving, how to shrink without making a sound. This is not weakness. This is not cowardice. This is what happens when no one tells the boy he is already enough. Some men become polite prisoners. They learn to play roles. Good employee, pleasant son, nice guy. But somewhere always, there's a rusted door rattling at the back of the mind. A door that leads to the real, to the sacred, to the wild. And it scares them, because they know if they open that door, they will never be able to return to the version of themselves that kept the world comfortable. You see, most men aren't afraid of failure. They're afraid of being fully seen, fully chosen, fully alive, because then they will be responsible for it. No one else to blame, no one else to wait for, no one else to hand them the map. This is the terrifying freedom that comes with manhood, and still, so many wait, not because they are lazy, but because they are loyal, loyal to their upbringing, loyal to the silent promises they made to parents long dead, loyal to the systems that gave them just enough to survive, but never taught them how to rise. And so the spell continues, generation to generation, unspoken but inherited. The boy sees the father bow his head. He sees the father not speak his truth. He sees the father disappear without ever leaving the room. And the boy learns. This is how a man survives. But survival is not the same as living. There is a life beneath survival, a raw, dangerous, holy life. It is not easy. It does not ask permission. It is not the life you're handed. It is the one you build from the ashes of every no you outgrew. And a man finds it, not by waiting, but by walking. The doorway no one names is the one you must cross. And it has no sign, no voice saying now is your time, no soft velvet rope to lift, just a silence, the kind of silence that presses against your chest. When you've stayed too long in a place you've outgrown, there is a moment, and every man knows it, when the questions change their shape. Not should I, not am I ready, but something deeper, more dangerous. Will I regret not trying? Is this all there is? Whose life am I living? You see, waiting has a shelf life. What begins as carefulness becomes erosion. What begins as politeness becomes decay. And a man can live an entire life, just slightly away from his true one, like walking next to a river he's never touched, close enough to hear it, never enough to taste it. Why? Because permission is a drug, a sweet one, safe, predictable. It tastes like comfort. It tastes like not my fault. But freedom, freedom is bitter, at first, because it demands that you speak your own name, that you face what you've denied, that you walk through fire, without knowing who you'll be on the other side. This is why most men say, not now. This isn't the right time. Later. But they know. They always know. That moment when the air in the room stiffens, when the mirror grows heavy, when every little task becomes a distraction from the truth that knocks louder each day. No one is coming. There is no hand reaching back to pull you forward. There is no mentor, no angel, no moment of cosmic certainty. There is only now. There is only the raw, quiet ache that says, you are allowed. The boy waits for that to be said aloud. The man says it to himself, not out of arrogance, but because he has suffered enough to know what not living costs, and that price is too high to keep paying. Most boys are trained by absence, not by lectures, not by scolding hands, but by empty chairs. The father is often there, but not there. A body at the dinner table, a presence in the garage, but somewhere behind the eyes he has left. And the boy sees this, even if no one speaks of it. He sees the fatigue. He sees the caution. He sees the way the man bends himself to survive a life he did not choose. The boy says nothing, but he begins to copy how the father stiffens when emotion rises, how he tightens when tenderness gets close, how he disappears when he needs to be seen most. This is not betrayal. This is inheritance. And so the boy learns that to be a man is to endure, to hold back, to stay put, to suffer quietly, and that, more than anything, permission must come from someone else, because the father never gave it to himself. No one told him, you may cry, you may speak, you may want something else. And so, in secret, he resented the weight, the house, the job, the silence, the obedient life. But he carried it because that's what was handed to him. And now, it is the son's burden too, unless one man in the line decides, I will not pass this down. I will not be a perfect imitation of quiet suffering. I will not become a monument to someone else's fear. That man, he does not rage. He does not scream. He does not burn the house down. He simply steps away from the pattern, one breath at a time, not to abandon the lineage, but to redeem it, because at some point, the man realizes he is no longer waiting for the Father to return. He is becoming the Father himself. And now, the question shifts from, why didn't he show me how? To, what kind of man will I become without permission? That is the moment, not loud, but seismic, because it is when the man begins to build from his own center, and the spell, the one wrapped around the men of his bloodline, starts to unravel. There is no ceremony for this, no welcome banner, no hands clapping in the distance. When the man begins, he begins alone, not because he is unloved, but because this part of the path cannot be walked in company. This is where the boy is buried, and this is where the man digs, not to erase the boy, but to find him, the real one, the one buried beneath years of compromise, people-pleasing, false smiles, and half-lived days. He digs slowly, carefully, because the boy is fragile now, covered in dust, tangled in roots, and still whispering, Am I allowed? And the man answers, not with words, but with motion. He walks when unsure. He speaks when trembling. He says no when it would be easier to say yes. This is the re-entry, the long return, not to childhood, but to the soul beneath it. Because the soul does not age. The soul waits. It waits while the man climbs ladders he does not care about. It waits through the years of silence. It waits beneath the weight of every apology made for simply being. And when the man finally stops asking, finally stops pretending, finally stops bending his back to fit where he no longer belongs, the soul stands up, quiet, steady, patient, and the man, for the first time, recognizes the voice within him, not as rebellion, not as danger, but as home. This is not a motivational speech. This is not about chasing something. This is not about crushing goals or waking up at 5 a.m. This is about remembering what you already know, but were told to forget. You don't need another rule. You don't need a strategy. You don't need a script. You need silence and courage to meet yourself again, not the man you show the world, but the one beneath that, the one who has always been watching, waiting, burning, not for permission, but for you. There is a fire in every man, but most try to manage it, to domesticate it, to shrink it down into something useful, a polite flame, to warm the room, to light the hallway, but never to consume, because if it consumes, he fears he will lose everything, the job, the routine, the story he tells himself about who he is, and why he cannot leave. But the fire does not care for stories. It has no interest in roles, or titles, or the gold star obedience of men who play it safe. The fire is ancient. It speaks in images, not words, in symbols, not logic, in longings, not negotiations. And it only asks one thing. Do you dare to feel again? Not to feel what is allowed, not to feel what's acceptable. but to feel what has been buried under years of survival, grief, rage, joy so large it frightens the nervous system, desire so real it threatens the fake life. The boy waits for someone to tell him what's appropriate. The man learns the sacred language of his own body. He no longer waits to cry. He no longer hides when afraid. He no longer postpones the truth until it's convenient. Because truth, like fire, doesn't care when it arrives. It only cares that it does. And when it does, you are changed, whether you like it or not. This is what no one says. That rising cost you something, and you must pay it. You may lose the version of yourself that others like better. You may lose your place at tables, built on your silence. You may lose the illusion of safety, you wrapped around your own throat like a scarf. But in its place, you will gain something else, something fierce, something grounded, something untouchable. You will gain the right to say, "This is mine, my path, my voice, my soul," not because someone granted it to me, but because I stopped waiting and walked through the fire. Every man carries a shadow, not the kind seen in sunlight, but the one that lives behind closed doors. The shadow is the keeper of all the things the boy was told to hide. Fear, shame, anger, vulnerability. It is the place where all the no's live. No, you cannot speak. No, you cannot touch. No, you cannot be yourself. For a long time, the shadow is feared. It is seen as the enemy, the part that must be defeated, controlled, or hidden away forever. But the truth is different. The shadow is the map. The shadow is the compass pointing inward. It is the language of the soul before the words come. To deny the shadow is to deny your own depths. To ignore it is to walk blind into the storm. The man who rises without permission is not the one who denies his shadow. He is the one who invites it to speak. He does not erase the fear, but he watches it closely. He does not reject the anger, but he listens to its message. He does not shun the pain, but he honors it as a teacher. This is the quiet courage few speak of, not the courage of loud defiance, but the courage of stillness, the willingness to look where it hurts most, because the soul is not born in ease. It is forged in facing what we run from, and the man who chooses to rise learns that the path through the shadow is the only path that leads home, home to himself, to a life that no one can take away, because it is built on the ground of truth, not permission. The path a man takes when he rises without permission is lonely. Not because he rejects others, but because he cannot settle for the familiar masks. It is a loneliness that comes from shedding illusions, from stepping away from the crowd that applauds safety, and stepping into the silence that questions everything. No one can walk this path for you. No one can carry your doubts, your fears, your longing. And that solitude is not punishment. It is a necessity, because the man who rises must meet himself, without the comfort of distraction, without the safety of approval. He must stand in the stillness, where the boy once waited, and say, "I am enough. I do not need permission. I will be who I am." This moment, this quiet surrender to self, is the foundation of freedom. It does not come with a crowd or a cheer. It comes with a breath, a pause, a deep recognition that no matter how far the journey, no matter how steep the climb, the man who walks without permission is always walking toward himself. And in that, he finds a strength no waiting could ever grant. Rising without permission is, in itself, a kind of rebellion. But it is not the loud kind, not the kind that breaks windows or shouts in the streets. It is a sacred rebellion, a turning away from the scripts handed down by ancestors who lived in shadows, a refusal to carry wounds silently, just because they are tradition. This rebellion is quiet, steady, like the slow turning of the seasons. It does not ask for permission to be real. It does not seek approval for its existence. It simply unfolds, like a river finding its way to the sea, or a tree breaking through cracked earth. And in this rebellion, the man finds his power, not the power over others, but the power over himself, the power to choose, the power to say no, the power to stand in the storm without losing himself. This is the heart of true masculinity, not domination or control, but the strength to be vulnerable, to be present, to be whole. And that is the rebellion the boy never learned to fight. There is no crown laid at his feet, no medal pinned on his chest, no one waiting with applause or cheers, because the man rises without permission, not because he is reckless, not because he is blind to risk, but because he has stepped beyond the need for approval. He rises because waiting is a slow death, because the silence of permission has become a cage, because he knows, deep in the marrow of his bones, that the only permission he needs is the permission he gives himself. This is the final truth. The boy waits for the world to say go. The man knows the world is watching, but he moves anyway. He moves in quiet conviction, not because he believes in a promise, but because he trusts the truth inside him. He rises without permission, because he remembers that life itself is a wild invitation to risk, to fall, to rise, to become. And in that becoming, he finds freedom. Freedom not granted, but claimed. Freedom not given, but born. The man does not wait. He simply rises. And in rising, he becomes the father, the brother, the friend, the wild man, the healer, the fire. He becomes the man who no longer asks, but knows. He is the man who holds his own hand through the dark. He is the man who speaks without apology. He is the man who has come home.